Allison, welcome to the Change Champions podcast. How you doing today, by the way?
I'm good, Riley. I'd say that name a lot around here, by the way.
Okay, all right, let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. When we first connected, do you want to tell the audience why you are laughing as you say as you say my
Well,
name?
when Riley first reached out to me, and I don't respond to all the thousands of people that reach out to me because there are a lot of them, but Riley's email said Riley McGee. And I immediately said, or his LinkedIn, I have to answer this one because Riley McGee is my dog's name. And my dog is my kid. My Labrador is my kid. And Riley, you have many songs named after you that get sung many times a day.
Are you gonna sing one for us on the podcast here?
Riley McGee, yes, you are the pretty little puppy. Yes, you are. Riley
Okay,
McGee,
okay.
I won't go on.
I think that might be the line, and for listeners too. Hey, maybe we'll have some bonus content sometime in the future of just like Riley McGee soundtrack, and it can just
There
be
is
puppy songs.
definitely a soundtrack about Riley McGee, I will tell you that. There's also a breakfast soundtrack and a dinner sound.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so now that we have the dog songs, and I have a friend, a childhood friend, who actually had named her dog like when she first heard my name. She was like, "Oh my god, it's the perfect name," and so now I've been told I have a blame name, so it's easy to be like that disappointed your dog ate your food voice, if you know what I mean. But so that Riley, you can just like add to anything, and I guess make a song out of it as well. Moving on. Speaking of transitions and moving on, I would love to hear the specific part of your story, and I'm sure we could probably the little bit that I know, Allison, like we could probably spend the entire episode just unpacking that, and probably having part two and three and so on. But I think for people listening, there's a specific connection like into coaching, and kind of like you know, I don't want to put words on it. I don't want to like make assumptions here or use the wrong words, but it seems like everyone obviously has a story, whether they realize it or not, and it doesn't mean that they have to have some huge traumatic event for it to be meaningful or purposeful. But I know that you have a compelling journey and reason for why you do the work that you do, and we'll talk about the work that you do. But I'm wondering, for context for people listening, if you could kind of unpack and share kind of at least some of the highlights of how got to this this spot
How
today,
did we get
how you got
here?
into
I
coaching.
know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I ask myself this too. Well, okay, so December 2020, we were sitting in COVID lockdown, and I'm working away for my last company in the corporate world. I worked in corporate tech, global tech for over 26 years. Did very well, enterprise sales, product marketing leadership. I was December 3rd, I was in a meeting with the C-level executives at my company. I was going to be the first woman keynote speaker at our upcoming sales kickoff for 2021. So excited to carry the torch for not just all the women, but all the people that didn't feel like they maybe had a voice in that world. And very short runway between then and January kickoff, but knew we were going to get it done. The thing is, I had to share with the senior executives that tomorrow, December 4th, I was heading into emergency surgery and I was going to be gone for 2 weeks. But after that, we would rally and we'd figure it out. I was having emergency surgery. I was having a hysterectomy, and it was significant because there had been spotted a small little cancer cell, but I thought it was gonna be fine. 2 weeks later, the pathology came back. We all thought it was gonna be fine. It was not. It was a humongous surprise. I ended up with stage 3 endometrial cancer, and that meant that I needed to go in for aggressive treatment, radiation, chemotherapy, the whole thing. Really daunting. I'm not gonna go into all the emotions of it, but it was hardcore. I took leave of absence. I never did that keynote. And in that leave of absence, I found myself making some very strong choices throughout the course of learning, doing the research and learning what in the world I was dealing with, going into radiation, then going into chemo, I made strong choices. And that's probably part of the other story we can talk about another time. But a lot of them were about choosing me over everything else. Skip forward to after radiation, I'm in chemo. I've chosen to keep my brain active by going to the Cornell Executive Women's Leadership Program, met some amazing lifelong friends in there. But I also had this huge epiphany moment. And that epiphany moment was, wow, why am I less stressed saving my life? And it was stressful, mind you, it was stressful. Why am I less stressed saving my life than I was the last few years at my last company? And right then and there, I knew as much as I loved some of the people I worked with, I couldn't go back. I knew I couldn't go back. So the day my LOA ended, I resigned. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but my brother had been through some hardcore coaching training, also having come out of tech. And he said, "You should do this. You're going to love it." So I went into coaching training and I thought, oh, I have so much experience. I'm going to know all the things that I need to know about how to be a coach because I've got all this experience in the global corporate world, blah, 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 and then some. Well, little did I know this was the beginning of the most introspective macro growth moment of my life. And in any event, what I also noticed, though, in the process of my own introspection is a few things. A little while into coaching training, we're spending time really drilling down into our own personal values. And what occurred to me is the reason I had that epiphany back while I was in chemo was I was not honoring my personal values very much anymore in the corporate world that I was in. At my age, and I'm turning 55 tomorrow, it was time to actually make some choices that honored my personal values in life. And I saw a lot of my coworkers and people I cared about in the business really dragging themselves down, getting sick, physically sick from the stress that they were wearing, that they were taking on. And I was the first person to do that too. I was a perfectionist. I was constantly trying to prove something about myself that I didn't really need to prove. And I saw coworkers who were brilliant, smart, amazing human beings who brought so much to the table, all of a sudden kind of going inside their shell, getting sick, and losing a sense of themselves. And I did that too. And this whole introspection that I needed to go through, put in hard to kind of bust out of this frame of reference I had built for myself about the way life was supposed to look, really became purpose for me in terms of helping other leaders, strong people, smart people. I was good at what I did. I was. I built great relationships. I created impact, but I wasn't happy anymore.
I actually think that's the perfect word, again, for me to if I could interject. When you say anymore, I do. So first of all, I get the sense that when you said you took a leave of absence, I feel like that was the first and only time. That's kind of the hunch that I had. You seem
Yeah.
like a pretty, yeah,
Yeah.
driven person who was. I mean, I don't know how many hours you were putting in
I
to work.
worked whatever hours I needed to
Yeah,
constantly be making that impact. And I really created this disbalance in my life.
yeah. And I find in my experience, my observations, so many people in this space, people that come to coaching and consult have been burnt, burnt out, burnt by something else or someone else. And I think what's interesting, I had a conversation recently that really just explored how that's one end of the spectrum. And there might be people listening who have never gone to the deep end, or they've never worked 60-hour weeks, or they've never, I mean, whatever the thing is for you, that, and maybe they don't have pivotal moment where there's the, well, we used to call at the mental health consultancy I was a chief operating officer for, we'd call it like capital T trauma as opposed to little t trauma. So capital T would be like something that you hear like a cancer story and like, wow, that's powerful, that's moving. But someone else who might be listening right now or watching, they might think, well, I didn't have that. And I never, I've just always kind of been humming along. And yet I think it's still possible to get to the place that you're talking about where, you know, you almost kind of come home to yourself. You kind of rediscover yourself, or there's more intention, there's more purpose. I think that was the word you used. And when you say anymore, I at the same time, I kind of get this sense that it wasn't like you hated your job or hated your life or anything like that. It seems more like I even think using the word lost is a little strong, but it's almost kind of like you got lost along the way, or it's just like you went so far down a path that got so beaten, the path has become dusty and it just becomes a road, kind of like a
Autopilot,
automatic. Yes, autopilot.
autopilot.
Well, let's go with that one.
Well, it strikes me. So even before this cancer thing, now, mind you, I am also very well studied on human wellness. I,
That's
years
kind of what you were
before,
alluding to, right? With the research you were.
well, I mean, years before all this, I had gotten like as a side hobby, I'd gotten a certification as a holistic wellness coach. I've been a fitness trainer in my life. I've done a lifelong journey in this topic.
Mhm,
But 9.5 years ago, I was in my last company and I was sitting in the meeting and I got the world's worst call, probably equivalent to the one that was the call from my oncologist. But that call was ultimately going to tell me that my dad had a massive stroke. He died the next day in New York City. It
mhm.
was horrifying. We are a very close family. And this is something that a lot of people can relate to in their life, particularly as they get, real older and they start getting Gen X here. We are experiencing these kind of things. But I think it probably started there. And little by little, as hard as I was working and so on and so forth, I kept noticing this voice in the back of my head that was like, this can't be what's on your epitaph. This just can't be the only thing that's on your epitaph, Allison. You have so much more to give to the world and to people, and you're losing yourself. And I'm getting choked up saying that. I didn't even expect that, but I really felt like I feel like I somewhere along the way I was working so hard for what end?
How would you describe when you say losing yourself? Like, what is that? Just for people to even relate to it in the first place, can you describe what that even
I
feels
am not
like?
I mean, if you can't figure it out just by now, like I'm a really fiery person. I'm a curious person. I'm a growth-minded person. And when I say growth, I don't mean just like these are the things that I don't know and I'm going to go learn them. It's I'm going to be in a sense of wonder and I'm going to take my time to expand my perspective on the world.
Mhm.
And I wasn't. I was moving so fast that there was no part of me that was ready to slow down and notice that if I did slow down, the moment I slowed down and opened my eyes to the the wild possibilities out there beyond my daily go 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 perspective, my world opened up. I got more creative. I got more innovative. I saw people through different eyes. There were moments in my career where I was a hammer. Like, I was a hammer. I loved people, and I think people around me knew that I cared about them, but I also was hard on people.
Mhm.
And I also took over meetings a lot. And I see the when I stopped to slow down and really just kind of learn more about myself and what was powerful about me, it gave me the opportunity to look outward at what was powerful about other people and what they bring to the table and their amazing strengths that make them the unique leaders that they are in life. And
Yeah.
so, my objective as a coach, no matter if you're a CEO, no matter if you are an aspiring leader, is to help you expose those unique qualities, those authentic qualities that make you the amazing leader that you get to be.
And when it comes to coaching, I mean, so much of coaching is about that. It's about the other person, right? It's not you bring sometimes you'll hear like you check your bags at the door, check your baggage, but you're also bringing your whole person and experience and skill set to the other person in service of them. And in a way, I mean, I can relate. I remember getting the call that my dad had gone to the hospital, and I never actually spoke to him before the week was out. He had passed away. And so I remember dropping everything, and I was in stages of my second business at the time. And after, it was said and done, I just poured myself in. Like my work just started to pick up and my business kept growing. At the time, I don't know if this is something you did before you got that call, but I know for me, I definitely used work almost to cope. And I just poured myself into a distraction almost. And eventually, it came and caught up to me and I had to like, whoa, where am I even? What am I going? Where am I going here? Moment. But at the same time, at least in this space, and you can segue into this, like when it comes to coaching, consulting, like honestly, I think it's really any business, but this space in particular, it's about helping others. Like if there's not another human involved, then I don't really know what you're doing or where if you even, we're dog lovers in this household as well, and even, like, the pets, all the animals in the world, if you only ever served animals, you're not putting food on the table. If like, there's bills to pay, there's you everything in business can be boiled down to helping another human being, and making someone's life better, even by a little bit. And so when it comes to coaching and showing up and helping someone else, especially, like, in the leadership space, so much of it is I don't know if this word would resonate with you, and maybe you can give us your take on kind of what it is really that you do as a coach. Now, we've transitioned in. You've had this kind of almost reawakening, I want to call it. But when it comes to leadership, I think a lot of times for me personally, the word restraint comes up, where it's like you don't want to just take over the meeting. You don't want to word vomit on someone and just give all your idea. Like you have to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and create some space and hold that for the other ideas to emerge, for the creativity to come through, for growth and mistakes,
Yeah.
which ooh,
Oh,
that one
yeah.
that one can hit hard. But what's your take on maybe that's not the best word for you, but what's your like tell us about your take on that and kind of what you do and how you show up and as a coach and in this space.
Remind me the word that you just said.
Restraint.
Restraint. It's a great word. I think, as I said earlier, I was leading this fast pace, go, 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 never pausing to reflect really kind of life. It was always just go, go, go to do more, achieve more, make more things happen. That's great, but we miss out on so much. I was in a program with MIT last summer that I chose to just augment. I come from the technology space and I want to continue to, I don't, I'm going to just throw that in the garbage. I've got a lot of years of experience talking kind of deep tech topics, but so I chose to do the MIT AI machine learning for business strategy program this summer. And somewhere along the line, the professor from Sloan brought up a study that he had done years ago around collective intelligence. And this study really looked at, you know, measured groups, teams against one another to see which ones were the most collectively intelligent, the most productive, highly performant teams. And what I thought was so interesting, and I get there was a reason that he brought this up in the context of AI, but I think that might be a different conversation. Is that the teams that brought the highest level of collective intelligence were the ones where everybody had a voice, where all the different perspectives, not just the ones we brought in because they agreed with us, all the different perspectives and, what lenses out of which somebody saw a problem or a challenge were brought to the table, listened to, respected, considered. And what's more, by the way, there was a second part of that study that also said that the more women that were on the team, that also helped. to, and there's a reason for that.
What's the
And
reason?
the reason is because women tend to, there's something about noticing, sensing what's going on with the other people in the room.
Mhm.
And women have a greater sense for understanding what's really going on with somebody, even beyond their words.
The body
And
language,
so
the tone,
the
yeah,
eyes, exactly. And you can kind of draw out more from that person, from that ability to be so intuitive.
mm,
And that's really the gist of it. So yay, women. I work with men and women. I mean, I've worked with 98% men my entire career and built incredibly trusting relationships with outstanding men in sales, in large enterprises, in product management, in so many teams that I've worked with. And I just love them. And so it's, we learn over the course as humans, we learn over the course of our lives that because through reinforcement, that in order for us to get ahead or in order for us to create a result, we have to behave a certain way. And so part of what I do in coaching is I listen a lot to really get a sense of that person, really hear that, really understand what's important to them. And from there, we really start to break out their behaviors that aren't serving them. Their behaviors that aren't serving their purpose, what they want to accomplish, whether it's in their company or in their life or in both. Because frankly, personal and professional go hand in hand. When we thrive personally, we can also thrive professionally more than just getting to a new title.
for sure. I mean, we used to talk about that again in the, mental health startup that I was at. A good example that I could bring up is we'd say, if you were in a fight with your spouse or your partner, significant other, and you show up to work the next day, are you gonna be if it's a big fight, you're in the middle, you were sleeping on the couch. Are you gonna be at your best your best self at work? Probably not. And vice versa. So I think to I won't go down that rabbit hole because yeah, that becomes a different topic. But just to yeah,
But
to
I bet, like, honestly, Riley, I bet we can all, anybody who's married, particularly for more than 2 years, and I've been married for more than 2 decades, but you can relate to that example because there's something, no matter what you go on autopilot, you go do your work, bust through, but there's something still, preventing you, holding you back from being 100% in your job when you're kind of holding on to that angst.
yeah, and so that's something so for people listening, I just and in my own head, I'll replay this to make sense of it. There's the I'll call it the internal piece, right? So if you're listening, you have felt that personally. If you're dealing with that, if you're in a fight with like the mix and the intersection between personal and professional. That's something, especially if you're a coach or consultant listening as well, right? That's something that you have to be able to deal with yourself. And I don't mean by yourself, but I mean that's for you. But then equally, it's funny hearing you say that, original background being in sales. I feel like the further I go in my career and learning about sales, the more I learn about how much overlap there actually is between sales and coaching and active listening and empathy and all the things
Sales and
like
almost anything. Like we can be literally in any role in a large company, and we are really in sales if we really think about it.
well, tell me why. Why do you say that?
Because it's always about bringing value to somebody else. If we're
I
really
love
good
that.
at sales, it's about focusing outward and finding a way to understand who our stakeholder is or who we're, working with, and figuring out what brings value to them and how do I help them get there?
Who are they? What do they care about? What
What's
brings value
important?
to them? And
Yes,
how can I help? I
totally.
mean, if that isn't I love that. And I love that you're a former sales professional. I mean, you could still say current sales, but again, to your point, like where I feel like whether people acknowledge it or not, you really kind of always are in sales, even if you aren't in business for yourself. If you're an employee, you're still selling yourself to an employer, I mean, there's always, right? There's always that interpersonal, the communication aspect. And so to circle back to your point on coaching, and I'm curious, I guess, kind of the first question there of like the who do you work with? Who do you help have those kinds of learning moments, those conversations? Who are you taking the time to listen to and get to know? Who's your ideal client that you typically work
People who want to bust through their status quo. And I really say that. I know that sounds very like broad, but the reality is I have worked with C-level executives, male and female. I work with emerging leaders in their early 20s that are trying to find their way. I work with people, men and women in their 30s who aren't really sure, where to take their career or how to get to the next level of their career or how to
Mhm.
relate to um, people they work with. And so it's really high performing professionals, people who want to do a good job. And I believe that everybody wants to do a good job, who want to break free from their limits, whether they understand what their limits are or not, and
So
explore what's
yeah, good.
possible outside of that. Because at the end of the day, listen, if we're not getting the results that we ideally want in personally or professionally, we can be amazing at what we do. What else is there? You cannot, if you are sitting inside your own frame, okay? We all are. We're all sitting inside of our own frame in life. The only way to get out of that frame, it's for some major life thing to kind of bust through, like the cancer wake up call, or to frankly hire somebody who can be your trusted partner and help you see where your actions are not lining up to the results that you want to create.
So a question for you, Allison. If you putting aside a a major life event and then also leaving out hiring a coach of some sort, and I'm gonna use that super broad, like whether it's a consultant coming in helping you
Mhm,
tick the boxes or a career coach or a leadership coach or a counselor or therapist, what so outside help, I'll put it that way.
mhm.
Putting those things aside, do you think it is possible in any other way that you know of to shift and break through that the paradigm? I think you used the word frame.
Frame, lens, yes. Is it possible? Of course, everything is possible, but you can't dream it up. Like I think in the context of the way people grow, we we either, we know what we don't know and we can go learn it, you know? And we don't know what we don't know. And so how do we just, figure out how to learn it if we don't know that we don't know it?
Done.
I get it. It's like a constant time picture, but I truly
Yeah,
believe in this. This is where the power of hiring a coach or a consultant or somebody like that
yeah.
really lies, is to help you go deeper, go more deeply to explore where are those complete blind spots that I am just not exposed to and I can't even think of to enhance my game.
I'm actually trying to pull it up right now because I can't remember the name of this psychological phenomenon. I'm blanking on what it's called, but we always use an analogy with our clients to describe exactly what you're talking about. And I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's essentially like the analogy we like to use is like if you go rock climbing and you're on the wall and you get to a spot or the cliff or whatever, wherever you're climbing, you get to a spot where you just feel stuck. And there might be someone belaying or down below who's just screaming at you to put your left foot here or your right hand there, like just take this next step, and you just can't see it, and it's not that it's not even that they're any more experienced or skilled than you are. It's just that they have a better perspective, and sometimes we're just too close to the problem. And what I find is that people in helping professions, especially the helpers, sometimes need the most help. And it's not that it's not because they have a larger deficit by any means, but it's because they're so used to helping other people that they start to just assume and think that they can help themselves and it almost becomes this catch 20, like this weird paradox, right? Where it's, well, if I'm so good at helping people, I should be able to help myself. But actually, if you're so good at helping people, shouldn't you recognize the power of having someone
Totally. Totally.
someone else
I'll give
help
you an
you?
example. I think it's really important because what I don't want people to take away from this, and I think people mistakenly think, oh, they think they're better than me because they're a coach. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. We're all humans that we're growing and we have our own
Right.
strengths and we have our own thing. I know that I have blind spots in building this business. And I am on LinkedIn a lot. And I've noticed some people out there that I find that I respect a lot about what they have to say. And I tend to kind of peek into the military community a lot because I do a lot with veterans. And because of my dad, that's a very important area to me.
Mm.
And so recently I noticed a veteran officer who I find to be incredibly interesting. And I hired him. I recently hired him to help me with growing this business to the next level. I don't know everything. Yeah, I got a lot of perspective on the world. I have many layers of my life beyond the 26 years in corporate world that make me who I am and that I can draw from. But I don't know everything. And I have a great ability to listen. I have a great ability to sense. I am able to call people out on stuff. And I may not always be right about that, but I will call you on stuff. And then it opens something else. But do I know everything? Of course not. None of us do.
Yeah, I think there's when it comes to growth and building and learning, there's not a whole lot of place for ego. And I think that's a lesson that people, and myself included, may need to learn more than once before it sticks. But I have kind of two big questions here as I mean I'm conscious of time. So to try to fit these both in, I'll ask first in terms of especially people that are listening wondering, okay, well, what does that even look like? Like when you try to grow the business, like what does that mean? What are you doing? How are you doing? Can we talk about that a little bit? Like what's even the first step when you say okay, you have someone who can help. Great. That's even a huge like you've identified someone. How do you even identify that this person could help and help with what?
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm very active on LinkedIn and
Uh-huh.
I read people's I take the time to read posts from people that I see out there that I think might be interesting
Yeah.
and comment on them, and I create a bit of a rapport. I'm a good networker, and that is a strength of mine.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, and if I think they're that interesting, then ultimately I ask them to have a conversation, and we see where things go. And that's exactly how I found this particular person. You know, in growing the business, it's interesting. Like again, we all have things that we're strong at and things that we're not strong at. I can tell you through my entire career in product marketing leadership, and I touched almost every element of marketing in that time. Every one. There's one that I always said I couldn't stand. Like I hated it. I just said, Marcom people, you guys do this. I can't stand it. And that was demand generation, generation tactics,
Can you define that for
like email, like reaching out and trying to get leads and stuff like that.
so like lead generation would
Lead
be
generation,
comparable?
demand.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to probably regret saying this because of the 72,000 notes I get on LinkedIn every day from lead generation people. I was a high touch marketer. I am somebody who's going to be a brave, courageous networker. I'm going to reach out to somebody and create a conversation and get to know you and drill down deeply. And that's me. But as far as lead generation, not my thing. So I know that's just an example of where I know that I need somebody to really kind of help me bust that part of my business open so that I can create. Look, I'm not a big enterprise business now. I'm a small little business where I'm the product, I'm the seller, I'm the marketer, I'm the strategy person. I'm, building my strategy for next year on my wall right here. I mean, I'm wearing a lot of hats. So I just know that for other coaches and consultants and so on and so forth, you got to really be honest with yourself. You can't, you can wear a lot of hats maybe, but you got to pick the ones that you just really don't enjoy doing and find other people that, or you're not that great at, and find other people who can complement your skill set to help you do them.
When it's yeah, lead generation is a whole 'nother bucket. That would yeah, more time than we have, I'll just put it that way. But it's and, it's something we've observed as well in our business, like, we aren't a marketing agency by any means, we don't even have marketing backgrounds, but we have been marketing ourselves and for others for a number of years, and there's in this space in particular, I can't speak to others, but in coaching and consulting and service-based solopreneur, this small, you know, that wear all the hats vibe, there's really kind of this intersection between and don't get me wrong, like there's I think I remember learning 26 different marketing channels and I'm sure that they all exist because they all work. Otherwise they would just disappear, poof, no one would ever use it again. So I'm not saying that I think anything can work. But for this space, it's figuring out like what actually works best for you. And to your point, how do you identify, the maybe areas where you can use some more help? Really what that comes like we talk about this shameless plug we talk about in the leverage game, our free community and little mini course. We call it the rules of leverage, these little lessons. And one of them is about really it's just allocating resources is what it comes down to. And so if you have some time and or money or energy or some combination of the three, how do you turn that into an ROI? And for you, it's, hey, actually, I have this, whether it's a limiting belief or a limiting skill set or, interest, whatever. How can I tap into something to grow this area so that I can reach more people and help more people and make a bigger difference or make a bigger impact? And that doesn't mean hundreds of cold spam messages or email, whatever. It might mean that you just connect with more people and do some your networking magic, like the skill set that you already have. And that's what we found works well for us. But putting that aside, how did you, with that in mind, for people like to even get to that point, you had to have the awareness and then the skill to be able to prioritize that as part of your strategy moving forward. And then you also identified someone that can help. How did you even like how did you prioritize this area of improvements for you and your business? Like how did you take I'm trying to like not that can mean a lot of different things for different but for you your own personal take like what was your process for seeing this, the awareness, going through the thought process, hey, this
Well,
person can help. What does that actually look like?
I mean, for me, it's having really navigated a lot of cross-functional parts of large global businesses and small businesses for many, many years. I have a sense for and being a product marketer too. I have a sense for the elements that I need. There's also I've had this strong kind of voice nagging at me saying, you have not differentiated yourself enough out there in the world. You know, you should be doing more video and you're not doing enough video, Allison. That's always been one of my strengths. You know, you don't love volume based demand generation. And so I'll use some help there. It's kind of being, not everybody has the background that I do, but for me, it's knowing, listening to my intuition and being honest with myself.
That's it.
Yeah.
I
And I'm like, y- what you see is what you get with,
yeah.
it's like, I'm open to sharing my journey and my experiences and my and where I've fallen and had to pick myself back up with anybody, because I've learned from all those things, and it's just like it's such a bummer and it's such a shame, and of course, we've all been in this place before. You talked about it earlier, this idea of falling on our face or failing and not wanting to fail, but you see, failure is such a great opportunity, and I can't even tell you, like, yeah, there's a lot of people on LinkedIn that think, "Oh, things are so great for Allison now." You know what? I fall every single day of my life. I do, and I just have to, like, "Okay, what I learned from that?"
Yeah. It's and in speaking to you, I almost get the sense that that level of awareness, integrity, the I blanking on that being honest with yourself, like that to me, all of that wraps up in awareness and integrity. Like those are at least the words for me. And you almost get the sense that it just, comes naturally to you. And I don't say that to diminish any of your story or the journey and the skills that I'm sure you have earned along the way to get to that point where it does feel almost just, part of who you are. But for people that are maybe earlier on in that journey,
Mhm.
and I I almost I wish we almost had more time to kinda do some paradigm breaking and
I
and
like that.
shifting
I like
because
that.
this conversation, like this right here, I don't wanna diminish the importance of like, it's so easy to just gloss over that, but even just getting like, all the tactics and the things like, you know, we will have other conversations and episodes, and I'm sure that you and I could even take more time to go into specifically, well, how are you creating more demand and lead generate? Like, what are the things but the thing is like that will differ depending on the person that you are, the business that you have, the help that you hire, or what all of those things will dictate that. But even getting to that place, I just really want to highlight like whether it's going through capital T trauma or lowercase t trauma, or it's whatever your story is, I think just highlighting those specific elements, the fact that you have that level of awareness, you have the self honesty and transparency, authenticity, and that you are willing to act on it and willing to fail. Those are the things like that I think the characteristics that can really separate and differentiate, as you were saying, of ultimately you as a business and and then it becomes this ripple effect, and that's what I get really excited about. And speaking of that ripple effect, we didn't really finish the conversation, so I think this is a great place to kind of wrap up. Can you give a little bit more detail on the specific, like the coaching, the program, leadership program that you have that you can take people through? Like when it comes, so let's just pretend that someone's listened to this and they have, well, you can't really say they have demand. Let's just say they're interested in the work you are doing and they want to know more. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like and what like actually you have going on, what people could experience for themselves?
Okay, well, first of all, in my my business is called The Lens Leadership. There's a whole story behind why it's called The Lens Leadership, but that's for another conversation too. I do offer one-on-one customized leadership coaching, okay? And that is and that is customized. I said earlier I'm a high touch, you know, expert really. And I will get to know you for you. I don't have a cookie cutter approach to there are some things that we will definitely touch on, like vision and values, and we will spend time on that. That's not like, hi, let's talk about you. Here's your values. It's it takes a little bit of time because you got to feel them viscerally for them to be real. Okay. We're going to spend time on that, but this is very customized. I also offer a leadership program that I built last year and I'm about to kick off cohort 9 this week, and it's called Take the Reins, Be the CEO of Your Life. I think I'm about to relaunch it in 2025 as Take the Reins, but give me like 2 weeks.
I like that. Let's stick with
Yeah,
take the
it's gonna be
reins.
Take the
Just
Reins.
yeah,
I
cool.
I think I'm eliminating the other part. Anyway, it's expanded. When I first started, it was a 3-hour experiential leadership journey. and it's on Zoom, so people from anywhere and everywhere can join the cohorts. I mean, the cohorts are limited in how many people can join because it needs to be very high touch. But it was 3 hours, very, very high energy, taking everybody who joined on a very specific journey to really get into what is important to them and how to take action on those things in a powerful and impactful way. It's grown based on my listening, my observation. The reviews have been extraordinary, but I continue to observe and see where can I tweak. So I've tweaked it. It's now 2 parts, 2 days, 4-hour half day on Zoom, can be delivered in person too, but the general one is on Zoom. And then there's a follow-up a month later. I've expanded some of the actionability, accountability, and partnership element to this program. In a year ahead, I'm also looking at taking this program to a 4-month, 4-part journey that looks like spending time on the individual. Because if we don't get clear with ourselves, how can we really get clear with anybody else? So we got to start there. Clear with the individual. Then we focus on partnership and what it's like to work together with another human being and hold them up to their highest while they hold you up to your highest. And then we move into teamwork and what it's like to create a team vision and a team goal and stretch outside of our comfort zone to create a win for everybody on a team. And so Take the Reins is going to continue to expand in the year ahead as a full-fledged leadership program that can be delivered to people who register for the available programs off my website, or for enterprises who would like to deploy this to their teams.
internally. Yeah. I'm reminded of it feels like we're arriving at a similar place in terms of how you were structuring your program. Different demographic, different niche for sure, and I'm sure that within that, then there's different approaches, and it keeps going from there. But what's interesting to me is, I started. This is my third business now, and when I had first started it, it launched with just a pilot after a bunch of market research and listening, and then that pilot evolved after more data collection surveys. And I said, "What did you find value?" Just observations, and it's just kept growing and growing from there. And it sounds like you're taking that same journey of like you started with something and you just keep building it and building it and building. And I, so from my perspective, maybe a little bit of a bias here, but I have found that that is the best way to build the best type of offering and service one that really packs a punch and provides value. And even more than that, I think transformation, like we talk about change, there's a lot of information out there, and there's 100% value in curating that information, even just because of the sheer volume and the noise that exists in the world today. I think there's value in that 100%. But when it comes to implementing that, and you talk about like accountability, and then for your demographic, like working with high performing professionals, being able to lead. I think there's even it might be maybe coactive training. I'm blanking on the institute, the the credential, but there's something this framework that talks about kind of leading from like leading yourself, leading others, leading forward. Like it was this. There's kind of these different layers of leadership, and it kind of sounds like that's what you're exploring in that program as well. Do you
There's
think that's
definitely a lot of different layers of leadership. And like I said, I think it starts with, it starts here. If I can't model that getting into the discomfort myself, how in the world am I going to expect it from other people?
Do you think that's a prerequisite? Like, if you wanna be a good leader, a good coach, a good whatever, you have to be willing to walk the walk?
I do. I do. I'm a huge believer in leadership by example. And it's not to say they're not leading by example, whoever my bosses are, and therefore I can't perform. It's to say if I'm a leader and I want people around me to perform a certain way, then I need to hold myself to the same standard.
And I just to unpick that a little bit. I mean, because I think like in sports, you have the Andy Reid or Bill Belichick, like the football coaches
Tom Coughlin.
that
You
Tom
have to
Coughlin.
say
Okay,
that.
Tom Coughlin. Yeah, I still remember his frozen red face from years ago in the playoffs. Anyway, I think about like a coach who's old and shriveled and has a pot belly and can't might not be
Okay,
running
Andy
through the
Reid. All right,
drills
all right.
or what yeah, might not be running through the drills that they're telling their athletes to do. And yet, I think that kind of misses the point. I think
What
to
misses
you
the point because
yeah,
what you're reflecting right now is this dichotomy between the doing and the being. I can do a lot of stuff, but if I'm not being
yeah.
that true growth mindset, if I'm not embodying, if I'm not modeling, the behaviors that I want to see, the energy that I want to see, the willingness to step into the fear that I want to see, then how dare I ask somebody else to?
And I think that as a Philly guy, I actually think of
Oh, God.
I know I
Right.
shouldn't have said that, but I think of the recent drama of Philadelphia head coach getting into it with fans, but for that team, I think the narrative became around it. It's he's embodying the energy, and just maybe a poor example, but just for people listening, like it's not that head coach is going out on the field and like performing at 100% and giving it his all every snap because he that's not his role, that's not his job, but he is finding other ways to demonstrate the values and I think that's the level that you're
Listen, I'm not a huge fan of that particular coach for a variety of reasons, but let's just put it out there. So, for people who don't know, the fact that I'm a lifelong New York Giants fan. So, sadly, right now, I've picked up a couple surrogate teams lately, but they're not the Eagles. Obviously, regardless of his natural style, he's found a way to draw out a lot of the players on his team, including Saquon and so on and so forth. And so, for all of us who aren't huge Eagles fan, he's doing something right.
well, sports analogies aside, it seems like if you want to learn more about that and maybe in your own actual field of expertise, and maybe you're not a super sports fan or football fan, it seems like going through Take the Reins, as it will be called moving forward. I think we're just can we decide that?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I think that's good.
I'm
Yeah.
dropping the CEO of your life. It's good. In 2025, we're moving to take the reins.
Yeah, and so if people wanted to just get in touch with you and, let alone hear more about or learn more about that program, where are the best places? You mentioned LinkedIn. Where can they find you?
LinkedIn is a great place to find me. The DM or just, connect with me on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I also have a link to set up a 30-minute meeting to just do an exploratory call, see if we have chemistry, explore what's important to you and see if it makes sense for us to work together. Of course, www.thelensleadership.com is my website, which is consistently evolving. I mean, again, all the hats. Keeping the website up to date is an interesting challenge, and I've hired a great team in the Philippines to help me with that. I write a pretty intensive blog, and I do a monthly newsletter that is very thoughtful. I do a monthly note that I spend a good amount of time on, offer some questions to ponder for leaders, quotes a guest leader every month who talks about some of their perspectives. I am a avid reader and I do a book recommendation. I do a monthly leadership challenge. And if you sign up on the website, there's some extra stuff that you get that you don't get on the LinkedIn version. So,
Ooh, so check out the website and get the extra goodies.
yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all that and really just, thank you for your time and for sharing your story as well. And I hope that people watching, listening can, pick out the pieces that resonate for them because I think everyone has their own unique journey path and, and whatever those next steps wind up looking like. But I think there's so many, nuggets that are available to take and claim and, help in your own your own story, your own journey, and to help push you forward.
I'll say, as I said, I'm an avid reader and I am an incredible fan of Yuval Noah Harari. Currently reading his Nexus, his Sapiens is like one of the greatest masterpieces of all time. But I was listening to him on a podcast with Lex Friedman not too long ago, and he really kind of promoted the value of long format content because, yes, we've lost our ability to stay focused, we've lost our attention spans, but there is so much incredible value and great nuggets that can come from longer format content. I see that we're coming up on an hour now. So hopefully people have gotten to this place and they've been able to kind of pause and just consider some of the topics that are coming up and how they can be meaningful in their own lives.
I like the word thoughtful that you use because I think that you come across as very thoughtful. And I think that that fits right in with the long form point as well that you, that you just made. So, yes, if anyone has watched the entirety of this episode or listened, thank you to you as well, the listener. And again, thanks to you, Allison, for helping provide that for people, that space.
Thank you, Riley. This was really a fun conversation.